for joining us on the Right of Way Report, a podcast by Pikeoff OTA. You can join us here every Monday morning at 10 a.m., where we will bring you updates on legislation, litigation, and landowner information.
Hello,
Good
everybody.
morning.
Good morning. Hi, how are you doing on the road?
Doing pretty well. We're on our way to Grand Junction, Colorado for a day or two, and got all three of the big kids at home, taking care of all the animals and the yard and all the things. So fingers crossed that goes well for us and we can enjoy our time away.
Good. Good.
Yeah, what have you been up to?
Well, we were supposed to have our 5th annual Family Fun Night this weekend, but we canceled it because of rain, and then no rain came. But some places in Tulsa, I heard, and around the state got 7 inches of rain, so people got slammed. We just were in the donut. We didn't get anything.
Yeah, there was flooding up in Tulsa, like a lot of flooding. I saw something about that on Facebook yesterday, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But I got some weeding done and some gardening done. And then we had, soccer tryouts, and I had a basketball open gym. And this week, I swear to you, I think I have 15 basketball games up in Edmonds.
My goodness.
Yeah, so it's, all the big high schools are doing their summer league, so they have team camps at different places. Like one week was El Reno, then last week was Mustang, and then this week is Edmond, and then this weekend is OU, and then next weekend is OSU. So they take all the girls, the high school girls and boys, and they, set them up like with the summer league. It's pretty neat. It's just pretty exhausting, and then everything else too, like soccer tryouts, because soccer is like year round now or something. It's supposed to give you a summer break, but it hasn't stopped yet.
That's actually impressive in my opinion. Nathan played tennis for Norman North, and they didn't do anything over the summer. It was just up to the kids to kind of do their own thing, and which he did. I mean, he kept up practice and everything, but I think that would have been an awesome thing if they would have provided some sort of a opportunity for the kids to compete and keep up.
Yeah, I actually think it's really good. I'm coaching the middle school girls again and the 4th graders, and I set up a summer league for them, the local one at the YFAC, and it's just really fun to watch them smile and have fun, and it's just compete, but it's in a less structured environment than the regular season, so that's been pretty.
So they can have fun with it.
Yeah, so they can have fun, and I have 2 players on my younger team that have never touched a ball before. And then I have 2 players on my older team that have never touched a ball before. So it's kind of like a low stakes entry level place where they can come in, and big smiles on everybody from the new to the old. So it's been good. I can't believe it's the 3rd week of the summer already. So it's going fast.
It May has just flown by, and I can't believe we're practically halfway through June, it feels like. So
For sure.
anyway, so I think we're on a hard stop today at 10:45, so we probably better jump
let's
in and
go.
get going.
Okay, so the first thing we need to talk about is, we canceled our 5th annual Royal Bavaria. We pushed it to next week. So we have a musical guest, someone I've never heard before, but that was recommended to me. So we booked them for next week. So we are on for the 14th, and we're hoping that the weather cooperates and it's not 117 degrees nor raining cats and dogs. So come on out, enjoy the community and the food. And Andy always does a great job for us at Royal Bavaria, and it's really fun, and it's just time to relax and shake everybody's hand, give people a hug, and we're going to give you some updates in person there, as well as we can listen to some good music, maybe play some games. So I think it's going to be a good time. So Sunday, Royal Bavaria, 5 o'clock. Bring your friends. Come and go, or come and stay, 5 to 8. And I wanted to give you some good news. So just to know that, the fight is not in vain. So recently, we received some information from North Carolina that citizens stood up and politicians stood up. Does that happen in Oklahoma? I don't know. But in North Carolina, they shut down an 11-mile toll road. They said they didn't need it. And that's because you don't need it. And So what happened was the project would have added toll express lanes along approximately 11 miles of I-77 south of Charlotte. You can see that on your screen. And the estimated cost was roughly $3.2 billion. It was being pursued as a public-private partnership, a P3, with toll financing. And the North Carolina DOT argued that the project was needed to address congestion, because that's what they always do. But remember, when you add more lanes, you add induced demand, and it just, you can't get your way out of congestion, even if it's real. And it's not real in Oklahoma, people, please. I'm from the East Coast. I sat on I-95 for 8 hours on Christmas Day on the hood of my car because traffic was that bad. Traffic is not bad in Oklahoma. And it's not going to get that bad because the population models are wrong. But anyway, the North Carolina DOT argued that they didn't have enough state money, they didn't have enough federal money, so they wanted this public-private partnership to pay for it. It was only financially viable delivery mechanism. And so who stopped it, or what stopped it? And they have a regional planning organization called the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization, CRTPO, and they voted to withdraw support for the project after years of public criticism and concerns about impacts to neighborhoods and the toll lane approach. The state warned that if the local support disappeared, the project would be removed from the transportation plan and hundreds of millions of dollars in program funding would go elsewhere. So, you know, we're often told, and we're told right now, don't fight the OTA, you can't stop them. It's a different thing. It's an instrumentality, and the politicians are paid off, but, you know, politicians are paid off everywhere. But we're told that these mega projects are inevitable once agencies start spending money on studies and consultants. Charlotte just proved otherwise because they shut it down. And so they shut down this $3.2 billion toll lane project. And it was their public-private partnership was derailed when local communities stayed engaged long enough to convince the regional planning organization to pull the support. So while it's kind of different than what we're doing right now, it just goes to show that when the people stay together and keep fighting, and you know, it might seem like it's an uphill battle, and you could look over Newcastle and see them putting in the foundations and they're building as fast as they can, because as they tell everybody that they go and talk to, that they don't want Pike off OTA to stop them. And I'm telling you, the community support needs to stay strong because we're at a tipping point right now. And we're going to talk more about this, about the acquisition, but the East-West connector, that bridge, you know, we're going to probably be able to stop it for a while, but it's probably going to happen. But the southern extension and the rest of the East-West connector is not a done deal. And so we need everybody to stand strong, and all you people on the southern extension that are getting letters and being really fearful, Kelly will tell you too, the southern extension is not even on their construction plan out to 2031. So for them to come in and tell you, yeah, you gotta negotiate, we need you out. No, you don't. You don't. And they'll never put you on that condemnation list at one of their board meetings. You're 5 years out. And so we need to make sure that we're not jumping on the bandwagon and just, oh, we can't fight the OTA, they're too big. Yeah, we can fight them. Charlotte and North Carolina fought their toll roads and got it done. And then if anyone follows the I-35 expansion project in Austin, they've got an awesome citizen group down there, and I follow them on Instagram and Facebook, and they have managed to stop the expansion of I-35 in that area for a long time. So there are citizen groups. You just got to keep it up, keep unearthing the slimy things that they're doing, because they're going to make a mistake, and hopefully we can use that to our advantage. So just this is a positive start to the podcast, that it is possible. And this, if you want to read more about this, this was in the Bond Buyer. And they've also actually, in North Carolina, they also shut down a few other turnpikes, the Garden Parkway and the Cape Fear Skyway toll projects. And that was years of planning and substantial sunk costs. And North Carolina citizens stood up and said, and the political pushback too, they got their legislators to push back. They said, no way, we don't want it. And so, you know, keep the faith, because if we keep fighting, you know, it's possible we can stop it. So that was my positive story for the day.
Well, so one of those errors that you mentioned, that the OTAs, you know, making mistakes and one potential mistake might be that the people who are in the quote unquote new South Extension route, the one that is different than, what they originally put out, I realized that some residents they were under it in the beginning and they're still under it, even though that changed. But those who were not under it before, don't they potentially have a case to make with the courts saying that they did not receive notice and the ability to file a protest
Correct.
before the bonds were validated? So I guess if you're in the new path, that's something you should be contacting an attorney about, and maybe looking into filing some sort of litigation to exercise your right that you should have been notified before they issued bonds for this project, because it's possible that it's not authorized
Correct. And
to
that's
use
what,
those funds.
That's right. And so what Kelly's talking about is when we filed the first Pike Off OTA lawsuit back in May of 2022 to stop the bonds and to challenge the bond validation based on the fact that they did not have legislative authorization, because the OTA is authorized by our legislature through Title 69 to exist, okay? And our legislature has given them a blank check to do whatever they want. But anyway, the two routes that they wanted to build, the east-west connector and the southern extension, are not in statute, meaning that the east-west connector, that the location is in statute, but the funding mechanism for how they fund that was not allowed, okay? And then the southern extension, there was nothing, they tried to get the location in statute in 1993, and they tried to change it again in 1999 to say in the vicinity of Norman, in the vicinity of Purcell, and the legislature said no way. And so we knew that they didn't have location authorization. But my name, because I was being directly affected, was on that lawsuit, and everybody that was being directly affected, some people decided to join that lawsuit. So I had standing because it was my house that was going to be taken. But now, since my house is not in the path, I don't have standing. The new people have standing. So we need some new people to stand up and come talk to us and say, look, I want to challenge this because I didn't have my day in court. And we still have one avenue of relief that we didn't use on our first lawsuit. And it would be, if everybody was being intellectually honest, we could go back to the Supreme Court and convince them, show them a map and say, are you really sure you voted the right way last time? Because surely your northeast, southwest directions are compromised, because it doesn't. Read this statute and then look on the map at how they drew it. It's nothing like what they say. And we would win. But the Supreme Court hasn't changed over. And so I think we could probably, with a good argument, reverse their decision, because we still have the three people that voted with us, the dissenting minority. Hickson was a special member, and we could probably make a big deal in the press to get Winchester to recuse himself, since he's so compromised, living next to an OTA board member,
Do you think it's possible that, I don't really know how the court system would work in this case, but if you were to appeal this decision, would all of them have to recuse, and would they have to appoint special judges to hear it? Because I don't know how that works. Do you know how that works?
Well, so I'm not a lawyer, but the crazy thing about the evil genius of the turnpike authorities across the country is that they legislate themselves. Well, they give the Supreme Court original jurisdiction, and that it is unappealable. They say it in the statute. Whatever the Supreme Court says goes. So we did appeal it, and we got shut down again. So that case is completely dead. So if we started a new one, they would not have to recuse themselves. We would have to ask them. We would have to provide a proof, and that's what. So we asked our lawyers if they would ask Winchester to recuse himself, and they're like, no. And then afterwards, Stan Ward and Rob and all those guys, they asked Winchester, they wrote a thing to, hey, he should recuse himself. And then the Supreme Court wrote back and said, well, you should ask for that before we levied the decision. So I think the best way to do it was, Yeah,
to do it in the
recuse.
beginning.
Yeah.
For sure, we should do that in the beginning. But to be fair, some of the information that we had that showed, verified that there was a conflict of interest, which would be that one of the former OTA board members shared a condo with Justice Winchester, but he didn't purchase that other half of that condo until, or duplex or whatever it was, until February of 2023. And so when we filed that lawsuit, we couldn't have asked him to recuse based on that information because it hadn't actually happened yet. But then, of course, Winchester came back and said, no, I won't recuse. You should have asked me to do that in the beginning. Well, things changed, conditions changed. The conflict arose midway through the case. And so, anyway.
Yeah, so anyway, the big point is, I mean, I always type up the Substack after we do these podcasts, but we really need people that are willing to fight. So when I say fight, like it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So when we can hook you up with the right lawyer to take this back to the Supreme Court and to take this to district court first and then to the Supreme Court. But you got to be willing to be in it. Like we were in it for what, 2 years, that lawsuit? And so it's a real thing to get back to the Supreme Court, and so we're looking for people that don't just want to sell and move on, settle.
Yeah.
You can't want to settle. You have to want to just fight to fight. And there's people that wanted to fight on the Kickapoo, like the Brewers, and they're still fighting, and good for them. It's exhausting, but if people don't stand up and fight, then this is always going to happen. And my goal is, no matter if this gets built or not, to still stand together as a community and keep bringing to light what's happening, because at some point, the mafia eventually got taken down. So maybe something's going to happen and they can go to jail at some point, but or stop existing, as a instrumentality of the state.
Exactly. So I think potentially good clients or plaintiffs in this situation might be neighbors. If you have several neighbors near you that are also going to be directly impacted by that new route, perhaps a group of neighbors should get together and talk with the attorney that we can refer you to, and maybe that might be a stronger case than just one plaintiff, obviously.
Oh, I totally agree. Because, ours was strong because we had, 11 or 12 of us that were affected, and we all said, we don't want to settle. Like, we want to take this all away. And, okay, so we lost, and I was devastated. I got to be honest. It took me 3 months to recover, and I don't know if I'm still recovered, because I thought that the judicial system was really supposed to be intellectually honest and read things how they're said and not how the agency wants them to read them. And they basically said, I don't know if you've ever watched, if anyone hasn't watched that Supreme Court hearing, you need to go watch it, because the OTA lawyer pretty says, well, that's not how we always do it, and you need to listen to us, and we say that it means this. And the Chief Justice Darby goes, he covers his hands with his eyes, and he goes, so you don't want us to look at what it says, and you brought it to us, like, what's your problem? It's crazy. And then, of course, he voted with the OTA, so too bad for him.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we can include, I'll try to clip that. I know I have those clips somewhere, so I'll try to find those clips, and maybe you can throw them in your Substack.
Yeah. I think you probably might have clipped it already. I think I might have it in one of those Substacks. I'll go back.
Perfect.
I'll go back and find it. But we wanted to talk before we got off today. So many people are getting letters about their property acquisition, and there's a lot of misinformation being spewed to the citizens from those right-of-way agents. So Kelly has put together a pretty cool document that I included in a Substack from last week. It's also in the description on this podcast, so you can click on it there, and I'm going to put it up on the stage right now. And it's information about what you need to do to protect yourself. And so I'm going to blow this up so you can see it. And the biggest thing that I would say is that you don't talk to them on the phone. Like, you need to have everything in writing. And so Kelly has put in all of the emails that we have from the OTA and the different right-of-way agencies Encompass and Universal Field Services and Terra Resources. So if you've gotten a letter from one of these people, one of these agencies, especially on the Southern Extension, right, because you don't have a timeline, you don't even have to respond. And you can respond and tell them by email, do not come on my property. But the East-West Connector, you're going to want to say that too. But here's the emails for you. And if you're going to have an in-person conversation, you need to record, because they're trying to get you, and I keep saying this, be a marble statue. They're trying to get you with their negotiation and manipulation way to talk and give them information that they can use then and come back and lowball you. And we know, and Kelly's going to talk about this, we know they're give them a lower offer than they're expecting. So then when they negotiate up $50,000, they're going to feel good. Okay, so remember, I always talk about setting the anchor and understanding this. If you're going to negotiate, you need to have everything recorded and everything in writing. So Kelly, what else do you want to talk to them about this?
Well, I agree with you. If you are going to talk to them in person or on the phone, then you should record it. Tell them you're doing it. Let them know up front that you're doing it. It doesn't need to be something you do in private. And if they have a problem with that, then just let them know, well, okay, then we're going to communicate 100% through email then. But I would strongly encourage all landowners to strictly communicate through email in the first place, because then you have a written record that you can refer back to. But once they have your phone number, I want you guys to understand they can call you, and they will call you, and they will check in with you once a week, once every 2 weeks. And you're going to feel bad avoiding their phone calls, right? So you're going to answer the phone. Well, what happens when you answer the phone in the middle of the day and you're in the middle of something else and you can't give it your 100% full attention? But so you're trying to have a conversation, but you're not really able to screen those questions and filter the information you reply with in the moment, because it feels safe. That's the whole point of the conversations over the phone and in person in the first place, is to build that rapport, to build that trust with the landowner. That way they can find out they're going to say that they're trying to find out what your goals are so that they can help you reach your goals. Well, let's be honest. They're trying to figure out what your weak spots are, and where your vulnerabilities are and what makes you tick. And as soon as they are able to pinpoint those things through just casual conversation, this is going to be what sports do your kids play? It's the small talk. I would avoid small talk as much as possible. They're trying to build your trust. This is not someone, I don't want to say you can't trust them, but I do want you to be very cautious, because you still need to understand that ultimately they work for the OTA. They do not work for you. So while they use the word advocate and, word liaison, what you need to remember is they are an advocate and a liaison for the OTA. So they report back to them, not to you. So keep that in mind. And that's why you need to get everything in writing. They're not your friend. This is not someone that you need to build a relationship with. This is someone that this is a business transaction, and you need to treat it as such. And any business transactions, as you know, the terms and conditions should be put in writing all the time. That prevents misinformation, misunderstandings. It creates a record so you can go back and revisit that information and make sure that you understood correctly. It prevents them from saying things like, oh, we ideally need you out of your house by the end of the fall or early next spring or whatever. They know that if they say that in person or over the phone, that later you can't come back and say, well, I thought you said we had to be out by blah, 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 blah. And they'll be able to say, well, no, that's not what I meant. If they put that in writing, you're going to very easily be able to pull that back up. So anyway, so back to what I was trying to say. You don't want them to interrupt you in the middle of your day. And then you accidentally say things that you wish later that you had said, maybe I should have held those cards and I should have consulted my spouse or my attorney before I just said that. Or maybe that's not how I really feel. Now that I've had a chance to think about this for a few minutes, maybe I would have rather done this or that. But then they have you on the phone now saying that that's what you want to do, or you gave that information. You can't take it back. So if you are able to read the information they share with you in an email, then you are able to do that on your own time when you have the ability to focus 100% on what they're telling you, and you can take all the time you need to craft your response and carefully, make sure that you are only including information that your spouse is okay with you sharing, and make sure you're not oversharing. That tends to happen with in-person conversations. You overshare. So anyway, it's just a good way to protect yourself and make sure that you're only giving them information that they need, and not information they don't need.
Good advice. And don't let them use their silence. When people negotiate, they kind of sit, and then people are so quick to fill the silence with things. And like Kelly said, don't overshare. Because, you could say, oh, my son's graduating next year. And then they could say, well, since your son's graduating next year, why don't we try to be out by then? Or they could use some personal information about you to negotiate something that you don't want. And I want to point this out. You are not required to grant access. And we have no trespassing signs for sale. We don't make any money on them. We charge what it costs us to print them. And you can order them from us, and we'll either drop them off, or you can come get them at the Family Fun Fest, or when we can make an appointment to meet and get them to you. And you can hang them up, and it gives the statute where you do not have to give them access. And especially when you know that the construction could be 5+ years away, why are we rushing to do this?
Yeah, there's no rush.
There's no
rush. The rush on their end is they want to get as many properties settled as possible, because that allows them to move forward faster. But you are under no obligation to move forward faster when their project isn't even at a point that it's ready to move. I would say if they can't provide you with the 90% plans, then they don't know for sure how much of your property they need and how much they don't. Therefore, how can you negotiate a settlement when you don't even know how much they need or don't need, and what the other impacts to your property of the remainder are going to be? What if it's a partial take? Those kinds of things. So there's no rush. There's really no rush.
That's right. I'm going to throw up that sign so you can have in the comments to buy that off the website. And we'll have some available at our event this coming Sunday. And again, I would say if there's multiple people that live at your house, this is another thing that they're doing. So there's multi-generational people living in the same house or on the same property, and they're like picking off the weakest link. So they're coming in and they're just talking to this person, even though that person might live there but doesn't hold the mortgage, or doesn't, isn't on the deed, and they're trying to negotiate with people that aren't the true homeowners, and that's not, and the property owners, and that's not, to be honest, that's not ethical, but that's what they're doing.
That's called splitting.
Yeah.
When I worked in social work, we called that splitting. And that's where, like, when you have a child that comes and says, Mom, I want to go to this party or whatever, and Mom says no. And so then the child goes and tells Dad, and Dad says, well, okay, go ahead. That's splitting. And you don't want that. So if you are one of those multi-generational families, you've got grandma and grandpa living in this house, and you've got, son and daughter-in-law living in this house on the same property, you guys need to have a designated point of contact, and they need to only talk with that one person, or at least everybody needs to be present and talk through that person, if that makes any sense. You don't want them talking to this one and that one, and and yet that can be a family rule. Even if you own your property and the parcel next door to you is officially owned by your mother-in-law or father-in-law or whatever, you can still make a pact amongst your family members and say, look, anytime we talk to them, we are going to do it together. We will never, ever meet with them or talk with them over the phone without the others present.
Right. And what they're doing is just showing up. Mm-hmm. So it's so infuriating, because if someone just shows up in my driveway and I'm busy, I'm kind of not as nice as other people, but I'm like, hey, I'm busy, I can't talk right now, and I just go about to do. But I think some people are just too nice, and you're not being you're not being mean when you say, look, I don't have time to think about this and talk to you right now. and then you set up a time. Don't feel obligated to talk to them when they show up unannounced. And if you have surveyor crews or anybody that shows up unannounced, just pulls into your driveway and parks and gets out, you are calling the police. You're calling the police and you're having them come escort them off the property. Because this is happening all over. No one's getting phone calls. No one's telling any property owners. I mean, that's quite frankly, that's dangerous to do that for them.
It's very dangerous.
It's
and
very
I know
dangerous.
for a fact that actually is going against the OTA's policy. Their policy actually is that when the survey crews or anybody with the OTA shows up at a landowner's property, it's supposed to be scheduled. Number one, it is supposed to be scheduled according to their policy. Number two, they are supposed to have identification and show it to the landowner before they start walking around. And from what we're hearing, they're not doing that. And I would encourage any landowner that finds a surveyor or an appraiser, or which it shouldn't never be an appraiser, but or the right-of-way agent, anybody that is accessing your property that is not supposed to be there, you need to call the police, report trespassing, and press charges. Tell them you want them to press charges. Now, it's ultimately up to the DA to do that, but if we had at least 3 instances just last week or maybe the week before where landowners actually did call the police and the police showed up and told them to leave. Now think about if all 3 of those landowners had said, yes, I would like to formally press charges. And if all the future people say that, eventually there's going to be so many complaints that the DA is going to have a really hard time saying, you know what, no, we're going to let this go. But this is just MO for the Turnpike Authority. They show up, they break the law, and they ask forgiveness later. Only most of the time they don't even ask forgiveness. They just do it.
That's right.
So it's up to the landowners to hold them accountable. And one last thing I'd like to say before we hop off here is that you as a landowner need to be in control of this entire process. This is not something you want this right-of-way agent to control. You control the timeline, you control the agenda, you control the conversations. This is your property. You control the narrative, you control the timeline, you control the activities. It's not up to them. When they show up, you have your own agenda. You say, this is what we're going to talk about, and this is the order we're going to talk about it. You control every conversation.
That's right. And just before we hop off, I want to just give you one more glimpse of what is possible when the community sticks together and keeps going. So I put up on the screen the rethink35.org. So that's the organization like Pike Off OTA, but they're in Texas. And they are fighting back against the TxDOT's incessant need to keep expanding I-35. And if you've been down in Dallas and you've driven on those roads, I swear, I think like some of them are 10 lanes going one way. And it's a concrete monstrosity, and the traffic is never, you're never going to build your way out of the traffic. Okay, so that's just one thing. But I want to just, the words are important and how people label things are important. And so it says expanding I-35 is a bad deal for Texans. 20 plus lanes wide, $5+ billion wasted, 8+ years of construction. Now listen, 100+ bulldozed homes and businesses, the worst traffic, okay? Oh, that sounds bad. 100+ bulldozed homes. Do you know how many homes that the OTA is going to bulldoze? Well, Kelly pulled those numbers, and in the description of our podcast, across the entire Access Oklahoma program, there's 394 active negotiations or condemnation. 147 of those have closed. These numbers indicate that 541 properties in total will be taken for the OTA, by the OTA for the Access Oklahoma program. On the East-West Connector, 105 active negotiations or condemnation. So that means about 191 properties will be taken. 191 on the East-West Connector. And then we don't have a number on the southern extension, but they're trying to gobble up those properties too. So on I-35 down in Texas, they've bulldozed more than 100 homes. Here, we're up over 500. This is a thing to fight about. Like, we need to fight against the machine to make this stop, because this is ridiculous. And I was telling someone the other day when I was out and about that, again, these projects have nothing to do with transportation and everything to do with development. We talked about that last week with those access roads. And so it's really important that the community excuse me, stay together and keep fighting, because it is possible to stop some of this monstrosity from happening, and then we can stop it from ever happening again. And so there's lots of positive things that are going around all over the country, and freeway fighters, this rethink35.org. I'll write a Substack that has all of the freeway fighter type groups across the country and their successes, and their success happens because they don't stop. They lose some of the battles, but at the end, you know, they've won some things too for the people, and so it's really important that we not just turn around and stop because we think we're losing, or they're putting up foundations for the bridge across the South Canadian River without any permits, which is problematic from many different perspectives. But I just want you to know that there's many states that are fighting back against the machine, the transportation cartel, and it is possible to win. So don't sell. Don't feel like you have to negotiate. Stand tall. If you want to go to court, let's go to court. And just know that you have the Pike Off community behind you, and a lot of people that even aren't in the path are fighting to keep the turnpikes out of East Norman, because it'll ruin it forever. And so you should maybe just have a little positive spin on that it can be done. We need the whole community to do it. If they can pick off one or two of us, 5 or 6 of us, 10 or 15 of us, but they can't pick off thousands of us. So it's really important to protect our community that we all stick together.
And reach out to your neighbors, see what they're feeling, see how they're planning on handling things. You know, if you have more support, that's better. That gives you more information. I think you'll be surprised. Several landowners that I've talked to in the past have said that they've had the same right-of-way agent that their next door neighbor has, and maybe their house is directly in this same path, and they're 500 feet apart or something. And so they should theoretically be treated the same and told that they have to be out by the same time. But we have stories from these landowners saying that their neighbor was told they have to be out by Christmas, and then the next door neighbor was told, well, we don't actually have to be out till August, September, or the following Christmas. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And one neighbor might, hounded the right-of-way agent is calling them every other day, and then the other landowner that's right next door in the same path is, just sitting around waiting weeks and weeks and weeks on information. And that just goes to show that what we were talking about earlier, that's why they want to talk to you. They want to find out what your weak points are. And I promise you, they're playing those. They're saying, oh, this landowner is really anxious to get information, so we're going to slow play them. The other one they have figured out makes poor decisions when they're pushed faster. And so they're going to push you faster. So they're going to play on your weaknesses, and therefore you don't want to inadvertently give up your weaknesses through casual conversation. So just don't do it.
That's right.
Talk with your neighbors, find out what they're hearing. What are they telling them? Make sure that they're getting their stories, make sure that they're telling you the same thing they're telling their neighbors. And I think you guys would also be surprised. Several people have reached out to me on the South Extension and didn't even realize that their next door neighbor has also reached out to me. So there's support right next door. Go talk to them, people. Go talk to them.
I agree. And remember, primary elections coming up. So we're gonna get off for the day today, but check out the latest Substack, do your research, and make sure you're informed when you go to the polls, because there's lots of people that have showed us exactly what they've done in the past, and it's not good. So let's not continue to do the same thing over and over again. Maybe we can get some good change if we can get some good people in there.
Right. All right. Well, I think that's it. I don't have anything else. Do you, Amy?
No, that's it. I hope everyone has a fantastic week. I actually hope we do get some rain, but not on Sunday. So remember, Sunday, June 14th, 5 to 8 at the Royal Bavaria. We're going to have great music, great magician, great MC, great food, great company. No more trespassing signs for sale. Come and hang out and let us meet you, and you meet us, and just give us high fives, and we're all in this fight together. So hopefully we'll see you Sunday.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Right-of-Way Report, a podcast by Pike-Off OTA. You can join us here every Monday morning at 10 a.m., where we will bring you updates on legislation, litigation, and landowner information.